Greetings and welcome to the 66th episode of our online showcases, and as always, I'm your host Dark Elf Guy, and today marks a special occasion, for not only is it the holiday season, but with this episode we've also showcased over 900 mods on Morrowind Modding Showcases, and that's a lot of mods, and hopefully we can continue bringing you showcases of many more mods in the future. But anyway, today's episode is Argonian themed, and surprisingly there's a lot of Argonian mods out there, or Argonian themed adjacent anyway, so we have quite the lineup of mods for you in today's episode, and as always you'll find download links down in the video description below, along with links to Abbott's mod database, and links to mod clean utilities and tutorials if you need them. And before I forget, I just want to wish everyone a happy holidays and a Merry Christmas. But with that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with our popular mod of the week, which this week is Vality's Bitter Coast mod by Vality7. And now, this isn't necessarily Argonian themed, but it is sort of swampy and Bitter Coast themed, so I consider it to be, sort of Argonian adjacent, so to speak. Seeing as how Black Marsh is largely swampland and all. And in any event, this is a pretty big replace and overhaul for the Bitter Coast region, and this is perhaps one of the more popular mods that Vality7 made, which is saying something because the man is a modding legend. And this mod got over 45,000 lifetime downloads, and also won entry into the Planet of Scrolls Hall of Fame in 2008. And to be sure, it has a fairly large install base, and chances are you've probably already, seen or heard about this mod to some degree in the past. But if you haven't, it basically replaces all the trees in the Bitter Coast region with new models and textures using the spread tree style, as found in Oblivion. This allows the trees in the Bitter Coast region here to appear, rather bushy, with lots of leaves to create a really sort of forested appearance. Something the vanilla Morrowind's game engine wasn't really capable of doing, and indeed the reason why Morrowind has basically no forests is because the engine simply couldn't handle large numbers of trees, and in particular the large canopy-like trees as seen here. But thankfully though, the spread tree technology kind of gets around that limitation, though lower-end machines may still experience some lag with Vality's Bitter Coast mod. And anyway, the second thing that Vality's Bitter Coast mod does is add more trees and plant life to the Bitter Coast region, turning it basically into one giant forested swamp region of near-perpetual shadow from these massive trees, several of which have been increased in scale to provide a nice foresty vibe. And with this mod installed, you'll find the roads and towns of the Bitter Coast are now covered in the colourful green leaves of these just numerous trees, really changing the feel and atmosphere of this region, arguably I would say for the better. Though again, because this mod does add so many additional trees and plant life, FPS does tend to drop here and there as a result. But anyway, there's almost something magical and, I would say, ominous about traveling through the Bitter Coast region now, with vines and moss dangling down over the roadways that are almost always in the shadow of these great trees. You can just imagine bandits or hostile wildlife hiding behind almost every corner, waiting to ambush unwary travelers, and this really is, a great mod for Argonians, I would think, since it really captures the sort of dark swamps I imagine the inner depths of Black Marsh must be like. And just real quick, I wanted to take a look at these trees in a more, fog-like setting, because they really do add to the atmosphere during foggy weather, and the Bitter Coast region is engulfed in fog more often than not. And while these trees might be a bit dated by today's standards in terms of textures and models and all that, I just really love how they look and how they change the atmosphere of the Bitter Coast region, and I would certainly recommend that you go ahead and check out this mod for yourself. For our house mod of the week this week, we have Koyumalo Manor and Pundab playset by Blue Eagle. And I have absolutely no idea how you pronounce that name, and I'm sure I just, completely screwed it up, but, just look at the name. I don't even know how you begin to pronounce that. But anyway, this mod adds a sort of flying home to the Bitter Coast region, not too far away from Gunnar Mark, using the Pundab playset, a mods resource by Blue Eagle that we've actually covered in a previous episode. And this is one of Blue Eagle's more, classic house mods, and certainly one of his more unique ones. Using an architectural style that sort of invokes the swamps of the Black Marsh. You can just sort of imagine these homes, hanging from the massive trees of the swamps there. And there's also a bit of a backstory here. And going inside, you'll find a rather, compact but rather lovely little home to call your own. There's several levels in this mud brick circular orb-like structure that you can go between, with each level having a few divided off rooms, such as a library and study area with a couple of bookshelves, a dining area off to the side, a number of potted plants, a bedroom on the top level, as well as a storage area of chests and crates to, store your stuff in. And down on the bottom level, you'll find a mixed kitchen and display hall. And, the design here is again really unique and quite atmospheric, perfectly suited to Argonians, and especially Argonian mages, I would imagine, since you'll have to levitate to get up here. There is the small matter of a ghost that's currently residing here that you'll have to, deal with before you can officially move in. But once taken care of, this home is yours if you want it. And now there's 2 small rooms attached to the main house, such as a storage chamber with chests built into the floor here, where you can store excess items, and a master bedroom with a proper bed, desk, and a few drawers to put your clothing into. And all in all, this is really a one-of-a-kind home, and definitely worth checking out whether or not you're playing an Argonian character. And this week's gameplay mod of the week is more Argonian here by Astronaut. And, well, this mod does pretty much what it says it does. It adds tons of new hairstyles for Argonians, and I do mean a ton. There's about, I would say, 24 or more options here for you to consider when creating a new Argonian character. And these new hairstyles are all, very vanilla and lore-friendly in appearance, since they're really just variations of the vanilla hairstyles but mixed around, such as fins mixed with horns, or, more feathers, or a combination of ornamental rings, horns, and feathers, or so on and so forth. There's even a variety of colours of feathers to choose from, with blue, red, purple, and green available as choices. And yes, I know this isn't exactly a gameplay mod, but, well, it is part of the character generation process, and I was hard-pressed to find a better mod suited to this particular category with this particular theme, so it does kind of fit, even if it is a bit of a stretch. And anyway, you can see one of the new hairstyles up close here. This is a blue feathered hairstyle for the male Argonians. And you also notice that this fellow has a couple of horns, including a gold ring around one of his horns, which is certainly an interesting looking style. And here's another one with this sort of, red feathers makeup on the head here. Again, very distinctive and unique looking. And if you're looking for ways to make your character stand out a bit more, this is probably a good mod to check out for Argonian characters. And in addition to adding new Argonian hairstyles, this mod also comes with an option to add these new hairstyles to existing NPCs in the game world, so you'll see some of these more colourful and interesting mix of hairstyles on Argonians at, for example, the Argonian mission in Ebonheart, or elsewhere in Morrowind. And this is just a lightweight and lore-friendly addition to add a bit more variety for Argonian characters out there. And next up we have our town mod of the week, and this week we have Stilt City by D.D. Fields. And now this mod adds a new town to the shallow waters of the Sheilgard region, basically built right atop the waves on, you guessed it, stilts. And really this entire city is basically one big docking platform, with dock riggings formed around the central lighthouse, which is improbably being held up by a docking platform somehow. You'd think the weight of all that stone would put a bit of a stress on the wooden docks holding it up, but oh well. And anyway, as it turns out, this small community of shack dwellings and docking platforms is actually a secret haven for escaped slaves, originally built by Argonians as a temporary home away from home for those fleeing oppression to stay at before escaping Morrowind for the safer pastures of the other provinces of the Empire. And that's also the main reason for its remote location, so as to avoid detection from slave hunters and other unsavory sorts in service to the Dunmeri Great Houses. And the town itself is, rather nice looking in a sort of makeshift way, though the permanent population here is limited to just 2 Argonians, a shipmaster and a blacksmith. Otherwise all the shacks here are mostly empty, and are meant only as temporary quarters for runaway slaves and the like. There's also a guest house here that you can use as a player home, as we'll see here in a minute. And now the NPCs here do actually have a fair bit of unique dialogue, including a fairly detailed background behind Stilt City here, and why the town's located where it is, and also its connection with the Twin Lamps organization. But anyway, we're going to take a look at a couple of the interiors here, and as mentioned before, there's a blacksmith that you can find here, who can repair your gear, as well as sell you repair hammers and the like. There's also the guest shack, which can be used as a player home. It's fairly simple, with just a few bookshelves, a bed, and a chest. And you also find an alchemy lab in the lighthouse, but all in all, this is just a very small but scenic safe haven for those who follow the Twin Lamps. Right, so the week this week, we have History of Chakra Esh by Arhees. And with this mod, you'll find a new cabin off a small island near the Bitter Coast region, not too far away from the village of Gunnar Mark. And within, you'll find a rather atmospheric little cave dwelling, to say the least, with lots of, mushrooms, vines, and lanterns, among other things. This is also where you'll find a rather curious-looking Argonian, who, if you ask, will tell you a fairly long story about their lives and their homeland of Black Marsh, and how they were shaman there, before being caught and enslaved by the Dunmer. There's really quite a bit of dialogue here, and I do mean quite a bit. This story goes on for several minutes, but you can sort of influence its ultimate outcome with your dialogue choices, and regardless of what you do, you'll find a treasure trove of Argonian artifacts here to take away as your own. And this includes some really interesting looking native Argonian armor, with different headdresses that you can wear, and tribal garb, as well as some new blunt weapons such as a staff that you'll find in the cave. And all this is supposedly the clothing, armor, and weapons of the Argonian shamans, and it does, look quite good on Argonian characters like mine here, if I do say so myself. And this isn't a particularly large mod or anything, but if you're playing as an Argonian or some other type of character, and to just want some more native Argonian armor styles in your game, this is a pretty good mod to check out. This week's quest mod of the week is Navina's Twin Lamps and Slave Hunters by Navina, and now this is really a pretty massive mod, adding, according to the author, over 100 new quests across 2 factions, and expanded Twin Lamps. It's also been given a ton of new quests, safe house locations, and much more, and also a new Slave Hunter faction, which is sort of the exact opposite of the Twin Lamps, specializing in the capture and selling off of slaves, but also performing other various tasks, really whatever their clients require. And needless to say, there's a bit of a conflict between the two groups here, as we'll see later on. But I wanted to start out our showcase here by looking at some of the Slave Hunter quests and activities in particular. You'll find Slave Hunter faction towers now outside of a variety of towns, including Cedonine, Tel Brenora, Tel Mora, and a number of other mostly smaller settlements around Morrowind. Each of the faction leaders stationed in the individual towers here have different sorts of quests for you to do. For example, the one in Cedonine will mostly just send you on quests to collect money from clients, and occasionally to gather ingredients or other items for special orders. Nothing terribly violent or anything like that. Meanwhile, another faction leader might task you with the drug trade, since the slave hunters have their hands in a number of perhaps less than legitimate business operations, and this means providing or delivering skooma or moon sugar for a bit of gold on the side. And yet another faction leader might have you go around and kill anyone that might threaten the organization or themselves personally, which is to say killing witnesses to certain crimes, rogue slave hunters, or whoever else just happens to be on today's hit list. Now often, the people you need to kill are in towns or cities, so you'll have to, taunt them into attacking you, if you want to, avoid a rap sheet anyway. And really, if all this makes the slave hunters sound like a sort of evil organization, that's because they kinda are. But they do have a ton of quests, and if you happen to be role-playing a more, I would say, nefarious character, they may well suit you. Now, there is a couple of other things I'd like to show off about the Slave Hunters here, including their headquarters, which can be found in South of Mora, right atop the slave market, which is about where you'd expect them to be, really. And the other thing here is that now when you encounter slaves in bandit and smuggler caves, you have a few more options than just setting them free. You can instead take ownership of them and have them follow you around. And if you bring them to one of the Slave Hunters' faction towers, you'll find a slave pin located in the basement of each tower, where you can turn in slaves for a bit of gold. And it doesn't pay much, but it still pays more than you could get in Vanilla Morrowind. And moving over to the Twin Lamps side of the quest line, much like in Vanilla Morrowind, most of the Twin Lamps quests center around the Argonian mission in Ebonheart, where after you've freed about 10 to 15 slaves or so, you can now join the Twin Lamps and get quests to aid the Twin Lamps. And some of these will involve vanilla quests, like the Slave and Halar Own, which you can now help by taking directly to Ebonheart. Now other quests involve delivering messages to other Twin Lamps operatives around Morrowind, such as in Out Velothi, or Vivek, or, so on and so forth. And each of these operatives will have additional tasks or quests for you to do, like enlisting the support of the Thieves Guild, or helping to smuggle slaves off of Ardenfell, or so on and so forth. You can even orchestrate various escapes for slaves that were previously largely untouchable, such as the slaves in the South of Mora Gateway Inn, which you can now free by slipping the key to one of the slaves here, who will then go through and do the rest of the work with freeing the other slaves in the inn. And you'll also find a number of new shops or houses across a number of settlements around Ardenfell, typically blending in with the towns that they're in. And these are actually safe houses where you'll find local Twin Lamps leaders who can provide yet more quests for you to do, but only if you have the passphrase, of course. After all, the Twin Lamps can't really, advertise openly in Morrowind. And much like the Slave Hunters, the quests you get will vary from the various quest givers, with some focusing on just, freeing slaves and all that, while others are more interested in revenge and killing the ones that have wronged them and theirs. So this means if you have a more violent playstyle, the Twin Lamps won't leave you hanging, and you'll be able to kill a variety of targets, including Slave Hunters, which is, where the conflict between the two organizations becomes fairly apparent. And in some of these quests, you'll even be killing the guards at various plantations around the Escaine Isles, so you'll need to be careful with, law enforcement and all that. And one last thing to show off with the Twin Lamps here, much like with the Slave Hunters, there's now more things that you can do with slaves than just, free them. You can offer to guide them to a Twin Lamps safe house, and they'll just, follow behind you. And they even have the option for companion share. And once safely delivered to a safe house, they'll go their own way, and no, you don't really get anything for, being a good person, other than a sense of pride and accomplishment, of course. And anyway, there's an absolute ton of stuff in this mod, with again over 100 quests, making it one of the largest quest mods out there. And if you're at all interested in the Twin Lamps or becoming an evil slave hunter, I'd recommend checking it out. Next up, we are in the next mod of the week, and this week we have A Call to Isla by Granarith. And after you defeat Agatha, you might run into pilgrims found around the various port cities of Ardenfell, looking for someone to help save their island from some sort of evil, and this will basically launch you on another epic quest in the same sort of mold and style as so many of the great epic quest mods from the mid-2000s. And indeed, A Call to Isla is one of the last major questing landmass mods that we have yet to showcase until now, and it was one of over a dozen large-scale and epic mods released right between 2004 and 2006. And it even won entry into the Planet Elder Scrolls Hall of Fame in 2006 with a lifetime download count of around 13,000. And in any event, this mod adds a new island of volcanoes and the occasional scenic beach to the shores of Ardenfell, located a fair ways off the seas of the Bitter Coast region. And it's on this island chain that you'll find a sort of hidden Argonian village and society, closed off to the rest of the world. And these Argonians are a bit different from those found on Ardenfell. They're a bit larger with new and unique armor, and the village here is composed pretty much entirely of Telvanni-style mushroom dwellings, all located in this swamp-like hidden valley with no direct access to the sea. And the valley here is a, fairly scenic place, with lots of trees, giant mushrooms, flowers, and plant life, though the landscaping on the islands is perhaps a bit rough. But again, this mod, like many from the mid-2000s, predates Distant Land generation. So, modders back then were able to get away with more rough and uneven, jagged terrain on the basis of the ever-present fog barrier, preventing players from really seeing too far ahead. And in any event, you can see the new island on the map here. And obviously, it will conflict with Tower Rebuild, but on the bright side, Abbott did make a sort of Tower Rebuild compatibility patch that moves the island out of the way a bit. And you'll of course find a download link for that down in the video description below. And now real quick, I wanted to show off some of the interiors here, which all sort of, have a greenish-blue lighting to them, as well as some unique sort of furniture design specifically meant for Argonians. Now you'll also find a tavern here, where the sort of height difference between the normal races of Tamriel and these particular Argonians become a bit more apparent. But anyway, there's some really, cool sort of mushroom furniture in here, and not to mention some nice atmospheric touches, and of course the NPCs here have some new dialogue, as well as a new miscellaneous quest to do. Though most of the questing content here is involved with the island's main quest, which for the most part we'll be overlooking in order to avoid spoilers and all that. There's also a bit of a basement shop here, with again rather unique design, and this is where you can purchase some of that new Argonian armor for yourself, as well as some new Argonian weapons. And anyway, there's not too much more to show off here. A Call to Isla isn't a particularly large landmass mod, but it is considered by many to be a classic. And if you want some more questing content that's particularly Argonian related, you might want to give it a try. Now for NPC Mod of the Week this week, we have Shadowscales by Xin, and this is a new lore-friendly race of Argonians that you can now choose to play as from the character generation slot menu here. And I believe these Shadowscale Argonians are best known in lore as a type of Argonian that specializes in being assassins. And as such, they have a pretty high sorting skills in illusion, sneaking, and archery, and throwing weapons, and all that. They're a race perfectly suited to sticking to the shadows and killing their targets from afar. And coincidentally, these Argonians are a bit darker than your typical Argonians, with more blackish and purple skin tones. And almost unmarried-like red eyes that, do make them look just a bit menacing. And now you can see one of these Shadowscale Argonians here, and they're almost a sort of ashen color. Kind of what I imagine a bent sort of tree bark texture would look like. Though some Shadowscales are again a bit more purple in coloring. Either way, they're fairly distinctive looking, and you'll notice again that they do kind of, look menacing. What with the horns and the red eyes and all that, they really are just perfect for assassins. And anyway, we're going to take a look at another male Argonian character here. This one with a bit more, color to his skin. He has a bit of blue in his face here, and perhaps also a bit of purplish coloring. And real quick, here's a female Shadowscale Argonian who has again a more purplish-like skin tone, which is noticeable in the face, tail, and arms here. Though you'll still find those same reddish-looking eyes, of course. And all in all, this is a pretty cool-looking race of Argonians that's both lore-friendly and fits in with the game world here. And it might be worth checking out if you're planning to play a new Argonian character, or want to play an assassin or something like that. This week's new meshes and textures mod of the week is Apel's Bitter Coast Retexture mod by Apel. And now again, this isn't strictly speaking Argonian themed, but since it does involve the Bitter Coast region, I consider it to be, Argonian adjacent. And anyway, much like Apel's Azura's Coast retexture, and this is a landscape retexture package for the various terrain textures of the Bitter Coast region. Only unlike the Azura's Coast mod, this one isn't a complete retexture, mainly covering the dirt roads, grass, moss, scum, and even the pod plant textures, Still though, what it does cover, it provides some pretty nice and high resolution landscape textures, as you can see here with the terrain around Sea Deneen. And now, generally speaking, the author recommends using Connery's Bitter Coast retexture mod alongside this one, though really you can probably make anything work alongside it, so long as you remember to install this one on top of any other, specifically Bitter Coast graphical replaces. And now, while this has never been a finished retexture package, the quality here really can't be understated. Like all of Apel's retextures, these really stand out and help to make the Bitter Coast region feel just, that much more impressive. I personally especially like the scum textures used in the bogs that are found all over the Bitter Coast region, and if you're looking for a small graphical upgrade to the Bitter Coast region, perhaps used alongside Connery's and Valti's mods, this is a good one to look into. Next up, for our Models Resource Mod of the Week, we have Argonian Armor Sets by Khorne, and while this is technically a Models Resource, this is also a fully integrated items mod that's ready to be played pretty much immediately after you install it, adding a new merchant to the lower levels of the Argonian mission in Ebonheart, who sells a variety of new armor sets that are specifically meant for Argonians. Now, taking a look at some of this armor here, there's about 5 new sets of armor in total, each with a sort of Black Marsh style about them, and there's also some new weapons to go along with the new armor pieces here. And taking a look at this second armor set, this one is based off of the shells of mud crabs, which can presumably be found off the coast of Black Marsh, much like they can be from the coast of Morrowind. And this is a pretty cool style to say the least, including a helm, a shield, and even a style of boots designed for beast races, of the rather, shell-like appearance of the common mud crab, fitting in well with the vanilla game. And showing off another armor set here, this one looks a bit different, sort of a fish-scale chainmail armor, if you will, based off of the slaughterfish found out in the waters of the Inner Sea. And each of these armor sets is available in either, light armor or medium armor, as those are the most likely armor types to be worn by, of course, Argonians. And now we have one last armor set here, which is a bit more plant-based, but nonetheless interesting looking. And while these armors might be a bit dated in the, texture department, they do provide an interesting mix of specifically Argonian armor styles, and are ideal both as a models resource for perhaps an Argonian village mod that you have in mind, or as just an armor mod to play with in your own save game, and they're certainly worth checking out either way. For underrated mod of the week this week, we have Argonian Hist Armor by Helos and Raoul Jektar. And yes, I'm kind of stuffing a lot of armor mods in here, and who knew there were so many Argonian armor mods to begin with anyway? But, this mod adds a new merchant at you guessed it, the Argonian mission in Ebonheart, and good grief, do a lot of these mods focus on the same place. Regardless though, you'll be able to purchase a new set of armor from this fellow here, that's again designed with Argonians in mind. And you can see this armor here, and it's interesting to say the least. From the looks of it, it looks like it's the bark of a Hist tree tied together using bones, and the bones of what, however, I have no idea, and it almost has a sort of menacing or evil look about it, but perhaps that's just me. And in any event, this really isn't a very large armor mod, containing just this one armor set, but if you wanted even more Argonian armor mods to deck out your character with, you may as well consider giving this one a try. This week's Blast from the Past mod of the week is Bitter Coast Fortress by Alan. And once again, this is an Argonian adjacent mod that I'm, sort of counting as Argonian themed, simply because it's based in the Bitter Coast region. But that said, if an Argonian were to own a castle, it would almost certainly be this one. Now, this mod adds a fairly large and rather scenic castle to the Bitter Coast region, right between the towns of Hlaa Ode and Gnarlmark, basically sitting on its own artificial island surrounded by water. And, I just have to say right away that this is a really nice and atmospheric fortress with a great design, and I absolutely love the blue lighting here along the exterior, and that's kind of why we're, recording this footage during the late evening hours, just so you can see the effect of this blue lighting here. And towards the back, you'll find a bit of a courtyard with a few gardens and flowers, not to mention a waterfall, and one of several balconies that dot the entire castle and provide some beautiful views of the Bitter Coast region, especially the nearby Daedric and Duma ruins, which, there's quite a few of them out here. And anyway, going inside, you'll find a rather modest-sized main hall, and you'll notice that there does appear to be a lot of style mixing in this castle, which is to say, mixing components of different tile sets together, like these imperial hallways mixed together with Velothi frescoes and the like. There's also a few pre-decorated display mannequins in here, as well as a number of service NPCs, such as a library and bookseller, a small dining room off to the side with an NPC servant, and also a blacksmith who can, of course, repair your gear if you like. And now down in the basement, you'll find the armory, which is sort of a mixed display hall and storage chamber, with a few tables and shelves to show off your loot on, and a ton of chests to store your excess stuff in. And something I should mention here, that we're going to be, skipping over it in our showcase, is that somewhere in this castle there's a hidden dungeon, and, I don't want to show it off because, of spoilers and all that, but it's a pretty epic looking little dungeon, and well worth your time to try and find. But moving on, we have the Magic Lab here, which uses, curiously a mix of Raedoran and Imperial architecture, and I just love the sort of design here. The author clearly spent a lot of time trying to make this feel like a sort of mad wizard's lair, with the cauldron that's just sort of, boiling over with some sort of weird, noxious, green substance, and the dozens of books of curious magical particle effects in the air. The author really nailed the atmosphere here, and of course, you'll find some alchemical equipment that you can use in here, as well as NPCs who can offer enchanting services, and also sell you various potions. And there's also a small basement to the alchemy lab where you'll find labeled ingredient crates, though they don't actually have any, visible labels on them, but there's one of these crates for each type of ingredient in Vanilla Morrowind for storage convenience. And now you'll find a services tower, which comes equipped with a number of NPC merchants, just, at your beck and call, such as a general trader, who has a fair amount, but, not overpowering, 2,500 bartering gold. And there's also a small locksmith merchant hidden away to the side here with lockpicks for sale. Now up at the very top of the castle here, you'll find a set of personal quarters, including a master bedroom, which includes naturally a bed, some containers for storage, a fireplace to keep the room nice and cozy, and there's also a bit of a private storage hall up the stairs here, with a few chests for you to use, and both rooms are, really nicely furnished. And of course, there's more to your personal quarters than just a bedroom and storage. The private quarters here occupy the entire uppermost half of one of the larger towers here, and includes a downstairs area with a dining room, bar, and NPC servant, which is actually a sort of, dancing barmaid. And there's of course a dining room table in here, with a cozy, warmly lit fireplace, a number of seats for company, and the barmaid here also offers food and drinks for sale, as you might expect. And there's also a kitchen in the back here, with a dining table for the servants. And while not strictly speaking Argonian themed, this is still a pretty cool looking castle, and one of only about 3 or 4 castle mods based in the Bitter Coast region, so it might be worth checking out just for that. Finally, we have our bonus mod of the week this week, which this time around is Ozar the Wizard Companion by Matthew the Bagel. And this is quite obviously a companion mod that adds a new Argonian companion to the town of Caldera, and he has a bit of a quest that he needs a bit of help with before he'll join you. Seems the Morag Tong has put out a hit on him for some reason, and he needs some help dealing with the assassin before he can become your traveling companion. But aside from that though, he has all of your typical companion features, thanks to Grumpy's companion scripting, including companion share, different combat stances, as well as different magical spells like water walking and levitating. And you can also have him, take a health potion if he has any. He can even teleport to various cities like Mournhold or Ebonheart or so on and so forth. So you can pretty much take him everywhere. And as a mage, he's pretty useful in a fight, with a number of spells including the ability to summon Daedra to fight beside him. And he's pretty good at fending off attacks on the road or in dungeons, including ferocious packs of Nyx hounds and the like. And anyway, if you're looking for an Argonian and more specifically a wizard companion to take with you on your travels, this might be a good mod for you. And that wraps up this episode of Morrowind Modding Showcases. And again, download links for all the mods shown can be found down in the video description below. So thanks for watching, and I hope you all have a Merry Christmas and a Happy Holidays. And we'll be back with a new episode in the new year, so I'll see you next time.